Guys, most welcome to all of you to my videos. Today I am going to discuss some very important questions from the chapters Mother's Day of the book Snapshot, and here the questions and answers are given in a short explanations. These are for the CBSE student of class 11. Let me start. The first question is, name the writers of the Mother's Days. So here's nothing to explain. The answers will be J.B. Priestley. In question number 2, mention the main subject matters, concerned topics of this play. That is, here you have to write the answer. What is the main concerned topic of this drama or play? So, here status of the mothers or wives or the female sections in our family as well as society is the main subject matters of the drama. In question number 3, write two features of Mrs. Fitzgerald's characters. Mrs. Fitzgerald's characters का दो features लिखना है. So as we have got, she is sinister looking and she has a deep voice. Then question number 4. So how does Mrs. Fitzgerald relate to Mrs. Pearson's? As we have got in the text that the student, they are neighbor. That is, Fitzgerald is the good neighbors of Mrs. Pearson. Next question is 5 number. Who was a fortune teller, Mrs. Pearson's or Mrs. Fitzgerald? Where did she learn it? So here's two ladies, one is Mrs. Pearson's and another is Mrs. Fitzgerald. Out of these two, you know, Mrs. Fitzgerald could practice the fortune tellers and she had learnt it from the East. In question number 6, Mrs. Pearson considered her family members as dash and dash. You have to supply suitable two words to fill the blanks. So, Mrs. Pearson considers her family members first thoughtless and then selfish, as we know the natures of the characters of her family members. In question number 7, how did Fitzgerald help Mrs. Pearson? Here the answer is very much simple, by making her family to treat her well. That is, Fitzgerald had adopted one plan to make good treatment for the Mrs. Pearsons. Next question is, give two features of Mrs. Pearson's characters. Here the two features is considerate and compliance. In question number 9, how was Mrs. Pearson helped by Mrs. Fitzgerald? As you know, they had in charge the characters, so the right answer will be by shaping personalities. Next question is, how did Mrs. Pearson react about Mrs. Fitzgerald's plan? You know, Mrs. Fitzgerald had planned and told to Pearsons to exchange their personalities, but she, that is Mrs. Pearson, responded very hesitatingly. She was not sure of it. Next questions, who asked whom to iron yellow silk? So Here, Doris, the daughters of Mrs. Pearson, asked Mrs. Pearson, her mother, to iron the yellow silk. Who was smoking when Doris entered the house? How did she feel it? After exchanging their personality between Mrs. Pearson and Fitzgerald, Mrs. Pearson uh, began to take cigarette or smoke. So when Doris entered, her mother Pearson was smoking. So Mrs. Pearson at this Doris became very astonished because before this Doris never saw her mother smoking. Next question is, with whom did Doris used to go out? Doris किसके साथ बाहर जाते थे? The name answer is very simple. The Charlie Spence, who is described as buck-teeth and half-witted. Who described? So Charlie Spence was described and specially by Doris' mother, Mrs. Pearson. Next question, number 15. Who referred to Cyrils about the changes she was treated by the family? It was Mrs. Pearson's. Next question is, whose eyes are red because of crying? Who make her cried? So the answer is Doris' eyes became red because of crying, and her mother, Mrs. Pearson's, made her crying. In question number 17, well, she is suddenly on the different. Who said and about whom? So this quotation, that is, well, she is suddenly all different, was spoken by Doris, that is daughter of Mrs. Pearson, and Doris told this about her mother, Mrs. Pearson. Next question is, how will you describe Mrs. George Pearson? That is, Mr. George, the husband of Mrs. Pearson, described as pompous, solemn, and fastidious. So this is the descriptions of the personality of George Pearson. In question number 19, how does George react at his wife's drinking stout? So here one word stout. Stout is one type drinking. So when George first observed that his wife Mrs. Pearson was drinking stout, that is one type one, he became very angry, astonished, and he became very surprised because he never saw her to drink and he does not like it. In question number 20, how is George treated at club as per Mrs. Pearson's? मिस्टर जॉर्ज का क्लब में कैसे बिहेव किया जाता था? एंड रिगार्डिंग दिस यू हैव टू मेंशन टू वर्ड स्पेशली. ही was loved. He was a source of love and he was called by name. In question number 21 now, who had been wasting time at races and ice shows as per Mrs. Pearson's? Here's very well into the play, that is Cyril. Cyril, the son of Mrs. Pearson, used to waste his time at ice shows and races. In question number 22, who described whom as the silly old bag from next door? This was described by Cyril, that is Mrs. Pearson's son, and about Mrs. Fitzgerald, their neighbor. In question number 23, We are in 6th and 7th here. Who says, what does he mean by this? It was said by George Pearson, that is Mr. Pearson's, and by this he wanted to express that they are in a state of confusion and disorder. In question number 24, when and why Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald get back to their original selves, that is, their original personality, because and when the situation goes out of their hand, so they became compelled and decided to go to their original characters, whose family had been unappreciated towards Mrs. Pearson's. The answer will be मिसेस पियर्सन्स का अपनी फैमिली ओन फैमिली उसके साथ अनएप्रिसिएटिव बिहेव किए थे. 26 क्वेश्चन, हु आस्क्स मिसेस पियर्सन टू बी फर्म with her family? This suggestion was given by Mrs. Fitzgerald. So the answer is Mrs. Fitzgerald. Next question, 27. Who suggests them to do family game of rummy and getting the supper really ready for that night? It was told to Mrs. Pearson. In question number 28, has any change taken place in the attitude of Mrs. Pearson's family towards hers? Here, the meaning of the question is there are some activities planning between Mrs. Pearson and Fitzgerald. So, what was the result? Was there any change? That is, any change has taken place in the attitude of the members of the Mrs. Pearson's family? The answer will be no doubt yes. The last question is, write the message of the play, Mother's Play. So here your message, you have to describe that to appreciate and respect the mothers, wife, sisters, that is the female sections, for their work at home in the society, to show respect. Their work should be dignified. This is the main message of the play Mother's Day. Hope you have got some important questions and the answer tips of this play, and it will be very much helpful for your examination. Thank you very much.